Let me can I add something? You know, in terms of intergenerational, what I found interesting was that a lot of the other aging organizations have always talked about intergenerational advocacy. But what they meant really was, we want young people to work on our issues. We want young people to care about Social Security or Medicare, which they should, but it was a way, frankly, of co-opting, in some ways, the politics and the issues. Whereas the Grey Panthers, and part of Maggie's vision was to see that the only way you have true intergenerational advocacy is that they were taking on kids' issues, young people's issues as well, and in both ways. That's why they were out there picketing against the war in Vietnam, and, you know, whereas the other aging organizations didn't want to have anything to do with it. So, I mean, she was really intergenerational. When she was asked, "You've never been married," and the stock answer was, "Well, just lucky somehow."
Just lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, she represented the best of many of the struggles of which she was a part, and she was certainly contributing wholly. And when we think about sexism and racism, the civil rights, the Vietnam War, the peace and justice movement, and those things. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the other aspects of her work and how she worked toward change, and with the Grey Panthers and her colleagues. And she anticipated, as we've talked about, the basic arguments about the generational war or intergenerational fight, and was laying them to rest and seeing the intergenerational relations as a great hope and strength and courage for the future. And in her attention to racism, sexism, and class divisions, and linking that to ageism, she used to always talk about our sick society that was rife with racism, ageism, sexism, and class divisions, which she often used the term imperialism. It wasn't world imperialism. She anticipated the global interconnections and set about in her lifetime to lecture in many countries and travel to a number of countries. We'll hear perhaps about a little bit more about that. So she, as a sociologist, she was the best of what C. Wright Mills, who wrote The Sociological Imagination and the Power Elite, and many trenchant political critiques. She really understood how private troubles were linked to public issues, and so each thing that might be picked up by the media as public interest in an individual trial or tribulation, she wanted to take it to the next level. And she bypassed the meso and intermediate level. She wanted to go to the top, and that was one of the things that she taught me, and I often told my students in another lecture. She was famous for saying, go to the top and speak even though your voice shakes. And her critique of the gerontologists, I mean, she took on, not only did she take on the aging organization,
she wants to turn the mic down.
Yeah.
Can't see your face.
I can't see your face, yeah. Lower the mic. Just pull it down.
Yeah. We're documenting this for the Grey Panthers project. Thank you, Marie Christine Yee, our videographer, for being here. So, in terms of her critique, she not only took on the aging establishment in many respects, and as Paul had talked about, and so had Steve, but she took on the gerontological establishment. So, as I mentioned, taking on the president of the Gerontological Society of America, and the trivialization that she felt gerontologists and the objectification and the focus on the individual or the individualization of issues instead of looking at how those issues came about, root cause, the structural source of problems. So she did also, in that vein, work with Gray Panthers to create this very important Media Watch project. And it actually had Gray Panthers in their homes watching television, and the commercials and the shows, and they had a whole coding scheme and collected data on the ageist media, and it was also ageist, in her term, was ageism against kids and young people who were seen as reprobates in the flower generation and many aspects of the Vietnam protests, and questioning authority, which she thought was absolutely the #1 thing to do most of the time in any kind of jam. And as a result of the Media Watch project, she did spur federal investigations and TV media standards regarding age. And there was this Johnny Carson, Aunt Blabby comedy skit, which had, I think...
Which she put a stop to.
Yeah.
She told him to stop doing it, he stopped doing it.
Right. And so one of the things that she did best in thinking about the media and language and framing, we hear so much about spin and framing and how important, we see how important that is in our current politics. Maggie was all about framing, and she really understood the importance of that, and her whole mission about age and youth together was part of the reframing of what we need to do and what we must do to reach the social justice goals. And so she was a leader in what is now a whole big field of political linguistics and cultural studies and communications. And she taught us so much, and her work as a wrinkled radical engaged Social Security and the war and peace and national need for a national health program. She was definitely where we need to be today and need to be going in terms of the work at present and the work ahead. And she had Gray Panthers had a special work group on economic justice and economic democracy. And that's where Social Security came in. And I still have old tattered copies of their work, which I think should be reprinted again, because you wouldn't believe that the 30 years or however many have passed since this work was done. And in it, Gray Panthers state, we believe Social Security is a contract between the American people and their elected government to provide every citizen with the dignity of financial independence. It is based on the constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Americans. And another quote that I think will have some resonance. Gray Panthers believe that the major causes of the current economic deficit are the bloated military budget and inequitable tax cuts to corporations. Talk about being prescient on the line. She's with us now. So I think I will turn it over to Paul.